two.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. Nina Ashford, who's the Chief of Public Health Services, Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Assistant Chief of Public Health Services, Dr. James Bridgers, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Dr. Earl Stoddard, who's Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. Our special guest this morning is Mr. Ash Shetty, who is the Director of the county's Office of Procurement. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good morning, Mr. County Executive. You look good today.
Good morning. And a good morning it is. To begin with, I want to thank all the staff and volunteers at Montgomery County Board of Elections, as well as everyone who came out to vote, even in the much needed rain. Election day was organized and safe and with no major issues arising, which is a good thing. I am deeply appreciative of all those who supported me in my at-large race, and it feels nice to be in the position I'm in, and I'm really grateful for the support I had. And the trust of voters have placed in my ability to serve our county is something I take seriously, and I never take it for granted. So it was nice to see the election results. About 109,000 total votes have been counted so far in Montgomery County. We don't know the exact number, but there's still thousands of mail-in votes that remain to be counted. The Board of Elections is going to resume counting the mail-in votes on Thursday and Saturday this week. And under current Maryland law, you have to count ballots up to 10 days after Election Day. So they will be looking at the ballots that come in over the next 10 days. And if they were postmarked by Election Day, then they get counted. If they're postmarked after Election Day, they do not get counted. I extend my congratulations to all of the county and state levels of government who secured their nomination for the general election. Some of the races are probably still too close to call. What stands out about our nominees is how they represent our county's very unique diversity. You can look across race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation, and you see a pretty complete panorama of people who represent the county at different levels, and this election continues that. I am concerned about the tactics employed by certain dark money PACs and their misinformation campaign. I have more than a little experience with their tactics and their money, having endured this in my last two elections for executive. It appears that once again, the developers that were involved have failed to buy the county government, which is a good thing, but it's not for lack of trying. It's also distressing to see a fake sample ballot claiming to represent Montgomery County Democrats. No such organization or PAC exists. That was created to resemble something that could have come from the Democratic Party. That should not have happened. The people who did it know better, and it should not happen again. And it was really disappointing to see that fake piece of mail come out pretending to be a Democratic Party sample. So we have some things to learn. It's really hard to talk about, what goes on in the MAGA world when people revert to similar tactics here. We don't need to do that. I do want to congratulate our congressional delegation nominees, and specifically April McLean Delaney, whose race at over $30 million was one of the most expensive races for a House seat in U.S. history. And that's an obscene amount of money to have to spend on a race. The congressional races this fall will be impactful to this county. And as a jurisdiction like many others like us in the nation, our people and our values are clearly being targeted by the Trump administration. And the current Republican Congress has been pretty feckless in providing checks on its autocratic impulses. And speaking of feckless, we're also currently awaiting reactions from the Supreme Court this week on several critical cases that they're deciding. We are paying particularly close attention to cases involving birthright citizenship, voting rights, immigration policy, transgender rights, and the balance of power between the federal government and independent agencies. These cases affect real people, real families, and the ability of local governments to serve their residents. Montgomery County is home to people from every corner of the world, and many of our residents have a direct stake in decisions involving immigration, civil rights, and access to democratic processes. It's especially alarming to see the assault on Black Americans that's occurring in this country, from attacking their voting rights and trying to gerrymander them out of power, to broad efforts to erase Black history, and to broadly assert that by virtue of their very existence, both Black Americans and women in general are unworthy of important positions. It is astounding how easy it is for these people to step back to the 19th century. Governing with disregard to the principles of equity and equality is an effort to draw us back into the deep, dark past, and none of us should accept it. Like many communities, we're watching for decisions that could affect how the federal government operates and delivers services that our residents rely on every day. Once the court issues its rulings, we'll review them and we'll assess any potential impacts on Montgomery County and continue working to protect the rights, opportunities, and well-being of all our residents. We are not going to surrender, and we will do everything we can do to keep doing the right thing, regardless of which way the winds of fate are blowing inside Washington. We will continue to do everything we can to make sure we do not fall into the mess that they're creating. Let's stop now and take any questions about yesterday's election, if anybody has any.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Members of the media, please raise your hands if you have election questions at this time. Bob Bernard, Fox 5 DC, go ahead. Bob.
Yeah, Mark, just curious your thought about what appears to be Will Jawando's victory in the Democratic race. He'll likely be the next county executive. In terms of, everything, development, transportation, housing, taxes, what does this mean for the citizens, the people of Montgomery County, in your opinion?
I think a more honest alternative than the other alternatives that were out there. Look, I've worked with all three of them. And, I feel honestly that Will's commitment to the kind of work this county does, particularly equity and broad equity, and all the things we do are more likely represented by him. And he's been a strong supporter of communities. He understands the importance of the people who live in this county. One of the candidates was clearly the developer candidate, had lots and lots of PAC money behind him, lots of dirty ads that came out, the kind of stuff that you don't want to see. And I experienced it before. So, I know the actors. I know who the list of contributors are to those PACs. I've met with them before. I think that everybody's going to have to deal with the tax issue. And I tried to make that clear when I put my budget out there. The county reached a point that with all the damage that was done to the federal government and jobs and the impact it has on our budget, that it is not possible to continue the level of services and the things we do, including schools, without some change in the revenues. And of all the candidates, I think Will is the one who understands the difference between us and Virginia and DC and how their tax structure has enabled them to do things that we're not able to do in Montgomery County. And I've said, you guys have heard me say this before, but Virginia and DC both have higher taxes on commercial property. And I will point out Montgomery County has the lowest taxes on commercial property in the entire DC area. Montgomery County does not have Fairfax County's $200 million business licensing tax. That Fairfax County gets $200 million every year from the business community. Montgomery County gets $0 off of any tax from the business community other than the property tax. The property taxes in Montgomery County are significantly lower than they are in Fairfax County and the district on commercial property. That gives those jurisdictions the tools to invest in transportation and in infrastructure that has enabled them to get ahead of us in economic development. And the county's stubborn insistence on sticking with the same tax rate for residents and commercial property has paralyzed this county. And you see it in the decisions I had to make in order to raise money to, fill the gaps, even when some of these gaps are infrastructure projects. I have to raise $3,000 on residents for every $1,000 we get out of the commercial property. That doesn't happen in DC and it doesn't happen in Virginia. It makes an enormous difference in what you're able to do. So if, and I'd say this to the business community, if you're happy not being able to build transportation here and not being able to compete with Virginia, then you're getting, so far you're getting what you want, a county that cannot build and cannot move forward. If you're envious of what they do in Virginia, don't just tell me, look at Virginia, but you look at Virginia and look at how Virginia taxes people and how they fund their budgets and what it gives them the ability to do. And I think Will gets that. And I can tell you the other two candidates did not get that. And when the council had the opportunity over the last couple of years to support legislation in Annapolis that would have given us the authority, legislation that was actually supported by Republicans in the state legislature, lest that be a shock to anybody, um, the council refused to support the legislation and the legislation died. Hopefully, with a different executive and with a more sense of that we really have reached the point where we have to deal with revenues, we're going to have a choice of either dealing with revenues and figuring out how we raise money and how we do things that we need to do in this county, or you're going to watch a continued unraveling of budgets. They cut the school system. The council actually cut two economic development programs. And so they talk about economic development, how we need more jobs. And then they were forced to cut two programs that actually help create new jobs and grow new businesses. So we can keep doing what we're doing, but the path is not going to be a path that goes upward. And I think Will gets the difference between staying where we are and bemoaning our stuckness, or find a path forward where we can actually take our rightful place. This county has got so many assets and so much potential. And to have people who are so fixated on the tax rate that they're unwilling to think about how do we get out of the box we're in, I'm relieved to have somebody there who's willing to look at how we get out of this box. So I think we'll be well served.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Members of the media, any other election-related questions for the county executive at this point? I see Judith Hirth, the Greater Olney News. Good morning, Judith.
Good morning. Mr. County Executive, do you think you'll have any more ability to sway the council members on this whole idea of development and the taxes and on developers and things like that now that you're back on the council than perhaps you did as county executive?
Well, my ability to talk to the council is way different when I'm on the council than as county executive. I can just say, I didn't feel over the years that, we had the opportunity sometimes to make our case for things because we were often limited by the council. I was once told that if I was going to speak, I would get the amount of time that a citizen got. I mean, I'm the county executive of the county. I'm trying to run and manage the place, and to say, well, you get 2 minutes because everybody else gets 2 minutes is a bit absurd. Hopefully, on the council, that's not going to be the case. Also, there are some different council members there. And some of the council members who most opposed looking at new ways of doing things, particularly looking at the Virginia model, aren't going to be there. And so if that plays out like that, then I think we'll have different discussions. I think the council, nobody wants to cut services. That's pretty clear. Nobody really is happy about cutting schools. And one of the decisions they made at the end of the budget created like over $100 million hole in the next budget before you get started. That's a lot of cuts, because I can guarantee you under Trump, we're not going to see a rebound in the economy that's going to make up for the hole that got created. On top of that, you're going to have all the normal expense increases. So, we talk about affordability and the cost of fuel and electricity and all this stuff. That applies to the county government too. I mean, do people realize how many thousand vehicles the county puts on the street? How much fuel we consume? How much our heating and air conditioning bills are for our buildings? I mean, all these things are going up just like they are for homeowners. And so to somehow think that the county can magically cut expenses, by turning our buildings to 80-degree temperatures in the summer and, not heating them in the winter, if we're going to live in the real world, we're going to have to deal with how do you pay for these things. And I think council members are going to find it very uncomfortable to have to making cuts to social programs. And I've always assumed that police and fire are pretty much off limits. No one's going to try to reduce our police force. We need to add 200 police officers, not cut police officers. We should not be cutting our firefighters. We really shouldn't be underfunding schools, particularly when now you're getting into service delivery people rather than, as some people would like to say, bureaucrats in the central office. The school system has gotten rid of 100 of those positions with this budget and what they've done over the last year. So you've got some really hard choices. You're either going to shrink what we do for people, and you can say, I lowered your taxes, or you're going to have to say, let's figure out how we can raise taxes without hurting the middle class. There's a very clear path to do it. Like I said, two other areas, DC and Virginia, have figured out how to do it. And, for all the Virginia envy there is, we ought to look at what they do. And I hope this council is willing to open their eyes and look at what they do. And hopefully they look at how the developers did in the election and realize that pandering to them is no guarantee of victory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Members of the media, any additional questions, election related? No more elections questions? Then we can transition, Mr. County Executive, to other topics. Go ahead.
Yes, so this week I want to shine a spotlight on our Office of Procurement. It's a department that often goes unnoticed by most residents. The Montgomery County Office of Procurement handles the purchasing of goods, services, and construction projects for county departments. It manages a portfolio that surpasses $5 billion. It's a lot of money, folks. They work to ensure taxpayer money is used transparently and supports fair business practices as well as legal compliance. Since my first day in office, I've been very clear about one thing. I wanted to get rid of the good old boys network that was in Montgomery County. It was no secret. People would talk about it all the time. People would say, I don't even bother to bid on contracts because I know who's going to win the contract before I bid. So we changed that. And when we opened it up, we got a flood of new people who realized, gosh, I can actually bid on a contract and have a chance to win. Not everybody wins, but people are just grateful for the opportunity to be considered and have a chance to win. And when they see the winners are often people like them, they don't have a sense that they were locked out. They may not have been successful, but they know it wasn't because we structured it so that only the winners are the winners who've always been winning. So it's a big change. So for too long, this place felt like a closed loop. We've worked tirelessly to build a procurement system that's easier to navigate, that's transparent, and most important, it's trustworthy for everyone. Our focus has been on ensuring that local businesses have a fair opportunity to compete, and that focus has been historic. Last fiscal year, we spent a record-breaking $274 million through our MFD program, which stands for Minority, Female, and Disabled-Owned Companies. Every third contract awarded went to someone who had never done business with the county before. And that's a sign that you've opened up in a go to boys network. That would never happen. We are continuing to innovate and remove barriers, and I'm proud to announce that starting July 1, 26, we're expanding opportunities specifically for women-owned and veteran-owned businesses. We will now recognize federal SBA certifications for women and Maryland state certifications for veterans. By leveraging these established awards, we're reducing the administrative burden on our entrepreneurs, allowing them to use certifications they have already earned to get a foot in the door here in Montgomery County. This was an issue I heard raised numerous times by people saying, I'm certified at the state, and, why aren't I certified here? And you shouldn't have to go through a separate certification process. This progress is only possible because of the hard work done by our Office of Procurement. They've been recognized nationally for their commitment to transparency and efficiency, and their constant experimentation is what allows us to keep hitting these record highs in minority spending. When our small business owners succeed, we all succeed. We want to see growth among the ranks of both general contractors and subcontractors. Many of the changes made within the Office of Procurement are designed to make the process easier and more transparent so more people can thrive. And to continue forthcoming changes in the state of the department, I'd like to welcome this week's guest, Ash Shetty. Thank you for being here, Ash.
Thank you, County Executive. As the County Executive just mentioned, the Office of Procurement is responsible for a lot of public dollars. We make sure that that money is spent in line with the county's values. In the last fiscal year, we spent over $274 million with minority, female, and disabled-owned businesses, which is a record high. We've previously accepted 6 different types of designation certifications so that minority-owned companies can identify as such. And then be allowed to take advantage of these programs. But we're always trying to increase the number of minority businesses, women-owned businesses, and disabled-owned businesses that can take advantage of these programs and be part of our ecosystem. And so we've added 2 new SBA certifications for women-owned businesses that will be recognized effective July 1st, so essentially next week. And for our Veterans Preference Program, which is something that was put in place under this county executive, we will also be recognizing the state's veteran-owned small business enterprise designation. Again, just trying to cast a wider net so more businesses can take advantage of these opportunities in the county.
Thank you, Director. Members of the media, do you have any questions regarding procurement at this time for Director Aschetti? If you have any questions, please raise your hands. No questions. Thank you for joining us this morning. You can remain here on the call in case anybody has any questions toward the end, or you can depart if you need to.
That's what just close on the procurement thing by saying one of the important reasons why we did all this in the first place is we did a lot of business with people outside the county. We're always going to do business with people outside the county. But the fact is that not only does it, when we do this kind of work, it not only benefits people who fall into the categories, but it benefits the counties because the dollars are more likely to stay here. The profits stay here. They rent buildings here. They store stuff here. They buy supplies here. And they often are more likely to employ local residents than if they're coming from another county and bringing people over here to work. So it's actually economically beneficial to us in the broader picture, not just an equity issue. It's an issue of what benefits the county most in terms of dollars staying here or dollars leaving the county. And this is a winner for keeping dollars inside the county. So that was one of the first things that motivated me to look at this, because I saw that this had two edges to the sword, and one affects individuals, the other affects the well-being of the county more broadly. So I'm glad we've gone down this path, and thank you, Ash, for your leadership on this. You get a lot of well-deserved awards. And with that, I guess we can take questions from anybody. Or my health team. Wait, that's right.
Good morning, Mr. County Executive. It's always a pleasure doing your press conferences, albeit this morning. So thank you again for supporting World Elderly Day proclamation and program last week. We are an age-friendly community for now 10 plus years. So it's always a gentle reminder that if you see someone that's treating our great seniors in the community, please report that mistreatment via our elder abuse helpline. That number is 240-777-3000. And that number can be also found in the chat. Just wanted to, again, thank you for your support to the many programs that the Health and Human Services, the department, to the community. I will turn it over to Dr. Ashford for her update this morning.
Great, thank you, Dr. Bridgers. We wanted to share with residents that the county is hosting a virtual community meeting next week, Wednesday, July 1st from 7 to 8:30 p.m. To continue informing the public and the discussion around the PFAS contamination and health advisory in the area near Great Seneca Highway and Key West Avenue. So this meeting is intended for people who were unable to attend last week's in-person meeting, or maybe you were able to attend last week's in-person meeting and you just have additional questions. So the link to register is, I believe, in the chat, and you can see on the slides there. And continue to get information and updates. Sign up for the email distribution chain at montgomerycounty.gov/PFAS. Thank you.
Thank you both. For some reason, we had some audio difficulties with the two of you. I don't know if it was my hearing disability or if it was for everybody else as well.
It was universal.
Oh, okay. All right. So, your audios were not top shape this morning. Dr. Stoddard, do you have any comments today?
No additional comments today.
Okay, we do hear you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, members of the media, any additional questions? Open questions for the county executive. I see Kate Ryan, WTOP. Go ahead, Kate.
Hey, and I am terribly sorry. I'm coming into this at the back end. We had some technical issues on my side. Can I please ask a little bit about the elections, but looking forward? And I'm referring to the Montgomery Perspective piece by Adam Pagnucco this morning, talking about what's ahead, that we've had kick the can budgets. He's talked about jobs where they're going, where the wealth in the county is going. He's touched on some things that the county executive has talked about, that we've been losing to our neighbors for years. Looking ahead and at the results of this election, what is your advice to others coming into office at levels at which they'll be deciding the county budgets?
So, when I came into office, one of the expressions I banished from my offices was the expression of the Montgomery County way. We would do something and everybody would say it's the Montgomery County way, it's the Montgomery County way. What's happened in economic development of this county is the Montgomery County way, and it's a huge mistake. I'm going to say this again. I hate repeating myself, but apparently I have to do this. Virginia was faced like we were coming out of the recession with, Tyson's Corner shopping centers, the same kind of stagnation in the economy. And instead of just bemoaning their situation, the business community had the foresight there, and I don't know why they don't do it here, to join with the council. Because when the council looked at the Tyson's plan over there, it was like, great plan. We'd have no money to build the infrastructure. And so they, along with the business community, went to Richmond with a Republican governor, Republican legislature, got authority to raise taxes on commercial property, took that money and put it exclusively into transportation projects so they could build the kind of communities where you could move a workforce in and out and you could be successful. You can increase the amount of development because you've got more transportation to move people. Montgomery County, looking at the same situation, refused to do anything. Absolutely refused to do anything. I proposed a bus rapid transit system for the county that actually got put in the master plan over 12 years ago. We have not built a single inch of real bus rapid transit in the county in all that time. We haven't built it because the county doesn't have enough money in the budget to pay for a capital project that size. There is no way to raise the dollars to support a bond. If you want to borrow money and float a bond, you have to be able to make the annual payments. We have never been in a situation where we can say, let's go ahead and build this project and we'll pay it over 20 years with bond money, because we don't have another source of revenue outside of what we get already in order to build things. So we are stuck, and we have been stuck. And I've tried to point this out. I mean, people talk about Virginia all the time, yet refuse to learn anything from Virginia, other than the fact that they're doing better than we are at attracting things. The District of Columbia, where cranes are still going up, developers there pay $1.89 compared to $1.03 in Montgomery County on a property tax. Their personal property taxes on their property, business property, is almost twice as high as Montgomery County's personal property tax. And they have this licensing tax worth $200 million to Fairfax that we don't have in Montgomery County at all. So Virginia gave itself the tools to make investments and grow the economy. Montgomery County has refused to give itself the tools, refused to do this. We had the opportunity for the last few years. Finally, we got legislation at the state level that would let us have a separate tax rate. Council refused to take a position on that bill. One of the council representatives lobbied against the bill. It's really hard to move forward if you're not going to do anything that changes your ability to pay for things. And we saw that with this budget. When revenues declined, I've tried, I've obviously been willing to raise taxes. I was trying to get the county to a point where the tax revenue would pay for the ongoing budgets. You're not relying on reserves. Instead of being able to do that, we relied on our reserves. Fortunately, under my leadership, and I don't say that very often for things, but I will own this one. We went from a county that never achieved 10% reserves to a county that was generating 15, 17% reserves. It was great because we could pull on the reserves to fund the next year's budget. But it's fundamentally a problem because when you hit a bump like Donald Trump and suddenly your projected revenues drop by half, and you get one snowstorm that takes you out for $45 million, all of a sudden the reserves are gone and you've got no underlying strength in your budget. The budgets have to be at a level where the daily tax or the annual tax rate supports the whole budget and you don't rely on reserves. Then you can pile up your reserves and you can do special projects or you have it available. So when you get a stupid snowstorm like we did, and it doesn't mean you're dipping into the funds you need for everything else. I think this county's got to come to terms with that. if you like Virginia so much, and if developers who, by the way, build on both sides of the river, if you're perfectly happy to pay those taxes in Virginia, you should be perfectly happy to pay them over here. And I will say, I do think the state of Maryland should lower its corporate income tax rate. I do think there are ways to do that. One of the ways to do that would be to give the counties more authority to raise revenues. In Virginia, for example, all the roads in Fairfax County are paid for by the state. But they
Got it.
give the jurisdictions the taxing authority to raise more money for the special projects that they build. So there's a path for us to follow. It would let us take the burden off of residents. If we had higher commercial rates, you could have lower residential rates. The residential rate in Fairfax is going to be, I think, somewhere between $1.12 and $1.14 this year. And the commercial base rate is going to be around $1.25 to 27. I don't remember where they settled. DC's residents pay 85 cents, 18 cents less than we do. But commercial property pays a minimum of $1.66 going up to $1.89. So you want a path to lower taxes for residents, and then you need to raise the money from someplace else. DC does it. They do it on commercial property. Virginia does it. They do it on commercial property. It's time for Montgomery County to wake up. If we don't wake up, I don't know where you're going to find the money. I'm not a magician. I could not find the money.
Got it. Follow-up question, different topic. So it's not a follow-up, it's a different topic. On the school system's decision to eliminate the position that Marcus Jones held, do you have concerns about what that does or what security in the schools will look like? They've said they're going to shift some of that under, and I forget the language, but they have responded to it. What was your reaction when you heard that news, given concerns about security in schools?
Well, I'm more concerned about the policies rather than the individual. So if the school system is going to adopt policies that make the schools safer, make sure they have the right people in the right place and the right number of people, I think it'll be okay. I mean, Marcus was kind of like the head of the organization, but Marcus is not in 250 schools. It's the policies that, to the extent they implemented policies that reflected his guidance, I would hope they continue to do that. But, if he leaves and the school system does not have a robust response and does not put leadership there, that's going to be able to think through these issues and work with our police department, both county and the local departments in some cases, they're going to have a hard time. So I'm not going to prejudge the outcome, but I'm not going to say that they're dependent on one person. They're dependent on the policies they ultimately go to. And a lot of problems in the schools were made, the idea of letting kids have phones in schools wasn't, which led to massive distraction and a lot of loss of learning, was not a security decision. It was undermined by the school system itself. And that destabilized classrooms to some degree, because if you encourage kids to disengage and you can sit in the classroom and play on your phone instead of doing anything else, you've not created a learning environment. So I'm glad to see the school system change that, but I think it's an example of other policies that contribute to a lack of social organization and a lack of control. When you give up control, no matter who you put in charge of the authority, who's the authority, once you've given up control over how kids are supposed to act in the school, they're going to have a hard time. So I'm glad to see them moving back to a little bit more rigor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Members of the media, any additional questions this morning? No more questions? Well, we thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Mr. County Executive.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Mhm.